Hey, Chicago, what do you say? This is the CHGO Cubs podcast, and the good news is we're all going to die someday anyway. Cubs lose 3-1, get swept by the Phillies. My God, I'm here with Corey Freedman and Jared Wyllys.
Hello.
I'm Cody. Follow me on Twitter at Cody_CHGO.
Cody Stuckmeyer.
People are saying Corey_Cubs and J Wyllys with a Y, two Ys.
Two Ys.
On Twitter. Hit the like button for us, for your soul, because you need something to feel happy about, because the Chicago Cubs have hurt us all again. The Cubs have dropped 4 straight. After winning 4 straight, Milwaukee won tonight, so they fall another, I want to say it would be technically a game back again. So I would say that's 5.5 now. And guys, there's a lot to talk about, obviously. You get swept by the Phillies at home at beautiful, historic Wrigley Field. The only good thing about tonight was Kyle Hendricks in the freaking sky. The sky might be better than Kyle Hendricks because he did give up runs, and he is taking the loss, undeserved loss. But I don't know where to start other than the bunts. Like, I can't stop thinking about the bunts. Obviously, Madrigal's was on his own. There's no way David Ross is calling for a bunt with 2 outs with 2 guys on.
I assume they're both on their own.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Morel's, but I think there's a little bit more question there for sure.
We know with Madrigal's bunt now. I don't. Thank you, Brendan Miller, for sharing this in the Slack
channel. We don't have to give him credit.
Thank you, anonymous person in our Slack channel. But apparently, Ross said in the post-game comments that Madrigal forgot how many outs there were. So that does explain it. Doesn't necessarily make it any better. At least then we know what the thinking was, because potentially that's a spot where if you think that there's 1 out, then maybe you bunt there. I still don't like it even in that situation because he's been hitting the ball well. So why
and it wasn't a good bunt.
It was a terrible.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do it, execute it. Do it well. Like, but you're right. Like, he's been over these 50 plate appearances is one of the best stretches of his career. He's been one of the better hitters numbers wise, obviously with no slug, but on base and average wise on the team. If you forgot how many outs, it is what it
right.
That's a whole separate problem. That's really even worse than the decision to bunt. But
that goes into the whole baseball IQ that Sox guys have told us about since the moment CHGO launched, and we went into last season with some sort of optimism about Madrigal. It's inexcusable. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of bad baseball you saw from last year. You want to talk about players that were actually supposed to be really good for the Cubs? Addison Russell did something like this, not to bring up that name, but I remember him having whether it was forgetting how many outs there were or something to do, missing signs on the bases. Yes, these are things that you don't do at the major league level. You're not supposed to do. You're supposed to get these kinks worked out in spring training. You know what I mean? And either way, it's just inexcusable in my eyes.
So we're getting it from the beat now. Gary pointed it out in chat, our good friend Gary. Both of those bunts, Ross saying, not coming from the bench. So Ryan Herrera will join us from Wrigley Field later in the show. Hopefully we'll talk to him about it. But it's just bad. I mean, it's just bad baseball. And, one of those things that I think coming into the year, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, and it might even be further back. I'm dating myself now, but there's been seasons with this organization where they've been really poor at certain things, outs on the bases, defensively, things like that. And I think last year was one of those years. And you hope that even if they weren't going to be a World Series contender, they would clean some of that up. It was really necessary, right? This is a really, whether David Ross called these things or not, the players are the ones out there playing the game. They have to execute. They get paid varying ranges of a lot of money to do their job. They have to do their job. I'm not letting them off the hook. But this is Ross's team. It's Ross's team.
Yeah.
And if Christopher Morel thought he was helping the team by bunting, it's his job to make sure Christopher Morel doesn't think that. It's his job to make sure that his players know how many outs there are. And again, I'm not letting Madrigal off the hook. That's his mistake, and it's a bad one. But Ross is the manager of the team.
Yeah.
ultimately, all of those little things are a reflection of your manager, right? You mentioned like the White Sox and Madrigal. It makes me think of La Russa last year, right? Not everything that happened with that team is his fault, but he's the manager. The buck stops with the manager, and this is just a bad reflection of David Ross tonight, even if they are individual poor decisions and poor execution. The Morel one, I mean, I thought you were going to blow a gasket. I mean, that was like Bugs Bunny steam coming out of the ear when we were watching that in the studio, and I was equally as mad. Yeah. But your 3-hitter, he's got an OPS over 900. He's one of the only guys in this lineup that has provided consistent slugs since he has been in the lineup. And he's bunting down 2 runs in the 5th inning with no outs. That's awful. Yeah, that is awful baseball.
One of those rare times when I think you can truly say that you beat yourselves, because there's two different scenarios where they had easily, it was laid out on a platter for them to at least tie the game, which changes the whole trajectory of how the night goes. And twice you shoot yourself in the foot, because neither of those, even if it, Corey, I think you're making a good point, because even if it is the player's decision or a player forgetting how many outs there are, or for what, I would love to know from Morel what his thought process was in that at-bat, that he's choosing as one of the better hitters in the lineup, the number 3 hitter, he is choosing to bunt with no outs in that spot. Why you would choose to take the bat out of your own hands, I don't understand.
Well, and it's like, I'm sure the logic, if we're finding one, is like advancing the runners, right? Advancing them for who? You're the 3-hitter.
Right. Normally it's they advance
They're getting advanced for you.
For you, yeah. You're the guy.
It's about as bad as when Wisdom bunted, and we sat on this show and complained and yelled about that.
Nobody should bunt.
Yeah.
Nobody should bunt.
Even Madrigal shouldn't be bunting.
Sluggers definitely should never bunt. Yeah. And like the thing with the Madrigal one too is him forgetting how many outs is real bad. And I sometimes that's one of those things where like I might have kept that to myself. Yeah. I know Ross has to air that out, but that's bad. So it's not a good decision even if he knows how many outs there are. Even if he thinks there's 1 out. That's the position he's on the team for, is a runner on third or in scoring position with less than 2 outs, or in his head it was less than 2 outs. In real life it was 2 outs. His role on the team is to make contact and find a hole, which is exactly what he's been doing since he comes up. So instead he lays down a terrible bunt that I don't know. It's just very frustrating.
I just wanted to like go over the 2 innings because it happened in back-to-back innings, right? So and this is for people who, if they didn't watch the game and if they're listening to it the next morning, because you woke up and saw they lost or whatever, and you want to know why. So the first one, the Madrigal bunt, happened in the bottom of the 4th. Swanson grounded out, 1 out. Bellinger walks. All right. Miguel Amaya shoots one to right, and Bellinger goes from first to third. You got first and third. Then Jared Young comes up and strikes out. So you got 2 outs with runners on first and third. In the first pitch to Madrigal, he bunts.
Yeah.
And that's how the inning ends. All right. Then you get to the bottom of the 5th. Kyle Schwarber makes his defense has been as bad as it ever has been this year. But Tauchman hits a deep fly ball, almost got out of the park, and it hits Schwarber's glove, and he drops it. So the Phillies gift the Cubs base runner. He ends up on second base. Nico shoots one to right, next one up, and Tauchman goes to third because I think Castellanos was a few steps away, so Tauchman can only get to third base on that. So you got first and third, 0 out.
Yeah.
Then Morel comes up and gets the bunt down, and Horner moves to second, but Tauchman doesn't even score. And that's why it's so frustrating, because it's like you have your 3-hole hitter, like you guys have said, and that's a prime position to maybe score 1 at least, maybe 2.
You're doing work on the starter.
Right.
What are you going up there and bunting for?
But then what makes it even worse is that Hap comes up, hits the hardest ball that he hit tonight.
Right in a glove.
Right into a glove. And it's like the baseball gods just like telling you, hey, fuck you.
You're getting punished for those bunts.
Yes, right. And then, of course, Swanson strikes out in the inning. So you had first and third with no outs, and you didn't score one run.
Two prime situations where you could have easily, at the very least, you tie the game.
Oh, God.
And what maybe makes this, at risk of rubbing some salt in the wound, with the Madrigal bunt in particular, we talked about how he's been hitting so well. Before the game, David Ross was asked about Madrigal in the 9 spot. Have you thought about moving him up in the order because he's hitting so well? And Ross's answer was, well, in that 9 spot, he's kind of functioning like another leadoff hitter because he's been so good at putting the ball in play, getting on base. And then here, again, even if you think there's less than 2 outs, why are you bunting? Doesn't make sense.
And then back to the Morel thing. Say he does hit a ground ball. Say he hits a routine ground ball to short. They get a double play. Well, at least the Cubs still score a run because Tauchman probably scores, right? I'm pretty sure they were playing back. He almost certainly
does. In that
right. And his next at bat, he hit a blooper that fell in, which is like, boy, what happens when you swing the bat?
It's amazing what happens when you let Morel swing the bat.
I do just want to go back to clarifying, at the beginning, talking about David Ross's role in this. It's important if both of these are coming from the players, regardless of whether Madrigal knows how many outs there are or not, which I guess is something we now have to worry about more going forward.
Everybody in the stands
the players
should just, hold up fingers or something.
Yeah. And to the point you were getting at where they were doing work on the pitcher, they're having good at bats, or the defense for the Phillies is failing them in the outfield, etc. The players need to understand the situations where they are allowed to call bunts for themselves. And as the 3-hole hitter, that should be never for Christopher Morel. And Madrigal is a different kind of player, right? So I think that one's a little trickier. Again, his role is to make contact and get hits in that exact situation. It makes more
sense for Madrigal if he does it with less than 2 outs.
Perhaps.
Doing that with 2 outs is just inexcusable.
The reason, again, everybody involved, this is just bad. Yeah. But it's Ross's team, and his players need to understand it's just like when guys have the green light on 3-0 or not, right? Yeah. There are certain situations where the players cannot go into business for themselves, and that is on the coaching staff to make them understand that. Yeah. But what's really frustrating about this is not just how stupid bunting is in these situations or in general. This team can't afford this stuff. These are those little margins things that they cannot get wrong. They are not out there slugging to outweigh these little things. When they have these situations, everything about it needs to be tight. The strategy needs to be tight. The execution needs to be tight. And that's when we get into it wasn't even a good bunt from Nick Madrigal. Well. It's not a good bunt. So just the execution is poor, and they can't afford stuff like this. They're not scoring enough runs. They don't have enough power on this offense to be doing bad strategy and just stupid stuff. They can't afford mistakes like this.
Well, and kind of on that front, I'm looking at some of the quotes from some of the beat writers that are there, and as David Ross said that Morel's explanation was that he thought he was doing the right thing, and seems to have not been clear on the fact that as the guy in the 3 spot, you don't bunt. That's not what you do. And so there's a little bit of, maybe on the coaching staff's part, assuming too much about what a player understands about his role, especially a young player without without a ton of experience in the majors quite yet. Maybe you just assume that Morel's not going to think that way. I could see why, because of Morel's experience batting in much lower spots in the lineup, where he might have that mentality, but perhaps you don't just assume that now that he's in the 3 spot, he's going to think differently about this sort of a situation. He must have gone up there thinking,
right,
oh, well, when this is happening, here's what I do, without thinking about the fact that, I'm the number 3 hitter. I need to be swinging the bat.
And go back on Corey's point here, where he mentioned how the team doesn't have the slug and all that.
Right.
This roster theoretically is supposed to be built of contact and quote-unquote professional hitters. I think we could call Ian Happ a professional hitter. Say Suzuki coming over from Japan, he was described as a professional power hitter, right? Nico Horner, professional hitter. So, I could keep going in terms of what their profile as a player is. I just looked it up right now. The Cubs have the 4th highest strikeout rate in the National League as a team. Going into tonight, 24.1%. Only ahead of Colorado, the Giants, and Milwaukee. Milwaukee has the highest at 25.8. Like, this is just the National League. I think they're like 8th in all of baseball with one of the highest strikeout rates in a bottom 10 strikeout rate in baseball. And it's like, if you're not going to slug, then you can't strike out this much. That's the thing.
You need to have those professional
Yes,
bats.
you have to have those professional bats. And like, to me, that blame or that question, I think a lot of blame or criticism should go to Jed Hoyer for the roster construction, but also like just the players themselves. Like,
absolutely.
Like Nico Horner has one of the best strikeout rates in baseball. He struck out tonight in the 8th inning. All right. Seiya Suzuki's been a very up and down player this year. Let's be real. He hasn't lived up to the $85 million contract this year. We were very high on him coming into the year because he was very solid in his first year as a rookie. Didn't play tonight. I'm not blaming him for anything, but we're complaining about the offense. We're complaining about not getting any slug. Well, he hasn't really provided any outside of the hot stretch in May. Ian Happ has 7 home runs, dude. And I think he's a better player in terms of he's turned himself into a better player now than when he first came up and was like all or nothing in terms of the power. So I don't want him to solely go back to that. But man, if you're going to bat in the 3 or the 4 hole, they need some power, dude.
You need to hit like
and
a
if you're
3 or
not
4
and
hitter,
if he's not going to bring that power, then he can't strike out. And I feel like this week he struck out at least once or twice in every game. And it's just like, you can't do it. You just can't do it. So yeah, there's a lot of blame. There's a lot of like, what the hell is this front office doing? What is David Ross doing? But I'm at a point here on June 29th to where I'm just like, these players are just not playing the way they should be playing on a consistent basis, dude.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the players are on the field and they have to play better. That's why last night I went on the tangent about London and the Mancini error and how everyone's blaming that for everything. Like, you are a Major League Baseball player for a reason. You have talent. You're supposed to play. You are described to play like this, and you have shown in the past that you do this, and you do this, and you do this well. Fucking do it already. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. And you look at, like, obviously last week was a good one, that series with the Pirates, and then that Saturday game in London. But you look at this series against Philly. We come into this series kind of knowing this is a critical stretch, right? You're behind a few teams in the division, but you're close. You've got a 13-game stretch here against some good teams. Like, we knew how critical it was. They scored 1 run in 2 of these games.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
And they should. The first game, I give a little leeway because I really did think Ranger Suarez was good. But tonight,
he pitched his brains out that
1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. They left 9 on base.
And you're clowning around. I mean, like this
with
look,
the bunts and everything. It's just
it's all just not good. The fact that we're having a conversation about bunting and knowing how many outs and who's calling for bunts, we can't be doing this. They can't afford this. They're just not in a position. They're trying to get back to 500. Like, they need to be playing like perfect baseball. Like, and
not just getting back to 500, but they're in a situation where if they play the way that they should, we could be talking about first place a week from now, depending on how things go against Cleveland, and then they go to Milwaukee for 4 games. But a team that does the kinds of things that they did tonight, that's not in the conversation anymore. But yeah, it's getting back to 500, but this is still a team that has a legitimate shot at climbing back to the top of the division, as long as they stop doing these kinds of things. Because like you said earlier, Corey, the margin for error is so small because of the way that the roster is constructed, because you don't have power in this lineup. You're not going to put up big run totals unless you string hits together and do it kind of that old-fashioned way, because they're not built to bash the ball out into the bleachers. And so when you get guys on first and third, runners in scoring position, and you're making either goofy mistakes or you're just having bad at-bats, then you're taking yourself out of that conversation.
Yeah, we did have a few super chats.
Yeah, we have like three super chats. Sir Silent of the Fogs $2 super chat. Horton tonight went 5 2/3 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1
good.
hit. There's your spin zone for the night, guys.
He looks great.
Is he ready for beautiful historic Wrigley Field yet? People are saying. Fernando,
Just bring him in PCA up now.
Yeah, bring him up. Fuck it.
Right?
I'm ready to be heard again. Fernando, $1.99. Number of outs are posted on the big board. It's like, yeah, on the big green board straight out to center. How does Madrigal not like at least glance out there before the at bat? It's a good point, man.
Maybe
usually
from now on.
Usually the opposing defense will
Yeah.
throw up some of these too. You could just look around.
Just look
Yeah.
Could ask somebody in the stands, like, hey, do you guys know how many outs there are?
You can check for
Right.
And a couple from Joe. Appreciate that, Joe.
Joe, I think he sent one on accident and then sent another one, so thanks. He says player leadership is non-existent on this team. I think me and Jared kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday with it just feels like, or no, we didn't talk about it. I was talking about this in my Twitter space with my friend Danny Rocket, who will be on our show tomorrow. We were talking, he talked about how, like, there just isn't there isn't a leader. There's no player that's, like, stepping up and, like, doing, like, in a way, putting the team on his back or whatever, kind of like how, you saw players from the golden era do that at crucial points, especially in 2015 when that team just kind of turned it, like, got hot at the right time, and, like, it took some leadership from other guys to say, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and you're waiting for some player to, like, just kind of do that for this team, because one of the reasons that I know me and Corey are mad, as much as this team frustrates us, as much as this team, has underperformed. We want to love this team. Like, I want to love this team so bad, dude, because I love our up-the-middle defense. I love our starting pitcher. Like, Justin Steele is a dog. Stroman's given us his best season of his career. He has all these vibes that I love. There's plenty of things about this team or players that I like, but because of how they have underperformed and how you just don't know what you're going to get on a nightly basis, it's just so hard to, like, not think of the negative and just assume that that's not going to happen. And that's kind of like what Joe is saying, is, like, there's no team leadership, and there's just not that one person that's, like, kind of helping us propel over that hump, like, again, on Sunday, a chance to get to 500. They fall apart, whatever. We've talked about it. But then they haven't bounced back yet. They get swept at home by the Phillies, which I know they're playing well. They were in the World Series last year. I get it, but at home, this is the second time you've been swept at home this season.
I feel like I feel like we see some of that from Dansby. I know Brendan's pointed out a lot that he's the first to top the step when guys hit home runs. Like, he's there, but I agree it doesn't feel like it's, I don't know, like, permeating outside of kind of the inner clubhouse. Like, whereas, like, that last team, you kind of felt more of that, I think, outside of whatever's going on behind closed doors. Does that make sense?
Well, and I think there's potential for it from guys like Dansby, and even I see somebody in the chat mentioning Bellinger. But I think, for what it's worth, keep in mind that especially in Swanson's case, he's now been with the team for a grand total of 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not if we're just taking the time that he's physically been with these guys, it's even less than that. So for some people, they can step in and just be those leaders right out of the gate, and then other guys, takes a little more time for that to develop. So maybe in Swanson's case, that might be something where we see more of it in the years to come. Next season, the season after that. It's very hard to guess at what Bellinger's future is with the team is going to be, and we probably don't even need to go there. But so I don't know that you want to put it on him. But the guy that I think that they really could stand to get more from on this front is Ian Happ. He's one of the longest tenured guys on the team. He was Gold Glover last year, an All-Star. He's shown now that he is your steady left fielder who's going to give you really good defense and, for the most part, hit well. So he can perform on the field. He's a smart guy, very thoughtful, intelligent guy. He's on the Players Association. To me, that's the guy that you probably need to look at and say, if you're really looking for that leadership, it should be him. The problem is he's a pretty chill dude.
Right.
You know, he's just, his personality maybe just doesn't.
This is,
lend
and
itself
I don't even
that.
know like what I'm looking for specifically, right? It's
I don't
maybe
either,
just-
like-
but it's like this feels like the night where like you just want to see, I don't know, something, fire from somebody, right? Like this just feels like a bad night to hear this stuff about the Bunts, and you get swept by the Phillies, and just have everybody go,
Yeah.
you know, we're back at it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what I'm looking for. Like I don't need somebody to throw trash on the field or break a Gatorade cooler or whatever. Like I don't know, but it feels like there needs to be a fire lit under this. Like this is a really bad start to a crucial stretch of the season, and it just doesn't feel like there's that urgency when you're hearing things about forgetting how many outs and the offense can't score any runs. Like it's
We
not good.
We gotta do our first ad break, but I do want to point out our friend Michael Collada. He says they sucked me in, now they stinks again. I'm not diving back in anymore. Bad team. I hear you, bro. I hear you, and I'm not out yet, but man, if things don't go well this weekend, it's a good day to go 1-0 tweets are going back to I'm ready to be heard again.
It's you know, this is what we talked about, I think, you know, coming into this stretch, like in pregame on Tuesday, like you're playing good teams up until the All-Star break. Like this Cleveland team, it's the same as every year has been for them for the last few years. Like they're not great, but they're in the mix in their division and their league. Like they're going to come in like hungry to win ball games. Then you're playing 4 at Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to tell all of you how a lot of those series have gone the last few years, right? At the very least, they're quite competitive between those two teams. And then you're going to New York. New York is not where they want to be, but there's a lot of talent there, and they need to win games. Like, this is going to be a tough stretch. If you're not bringing your A game, like, the other team probably will be. Like, the Phillies played a good series here. Like, they had a couple mistakes in the outfield tonight, but their pitching brought it. Their offense came through when it needed to. Harper with that clutch hit today, even though Hendricks was, had a nice quality start tonight. Like, you have to have your shit together. And, like, the Cubs did not look like a team that did in these 3 games.
I think we all need to make a stop at Sunnyside on the way home. That's all I can say.
Listen, I can direct you there. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, our wonderful first sponsor here, is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, a place where all kinds of visitors are welcome to explore, discover, and purchase a wide array of high-quality products. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. It is the one-stop shop for all your cannabis needs, no matter where you are on your cannabis journey. Easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Great transparent loyalty program, Sunnyside Rewards. And it is Illinois' favorite dispensary, from the city to the suburbs, Wrigleyville to River North, Champaign to South Beloit. I posted on the CHGO Cubs Twitter last week, went to the Sunnyside in Wrigleyville, used our code CHGO25, and I got that 25% discount. Took a nice picture of myself outside a beautiful, historic Wrigley Field. It's a great experience. It's a very nice, new, clean store. The staff is extremely friendly. I have been on my personal cannabis journey for quite some time now, dating back to my time at the University of Michigan. But if you are beginning your cannabis journey, their staff will help you out. You can ask any amount of questions for what you're looking for, what you're trying to get out of the experience, what types to buy, what products to buy. They will help you, they will guide you, and they will make sure it is a good experience for you. I love the Sunnyside house of brands that you can shop, like Mindy's, the best tasting gummy and chocolate edibles created by James Beard, award-winning chef Mindy Siegel and Cresco Labs, and the Good News products, gummies, rechargeable vape pens, and carts, perfect for great moments with the crew. Through August, head to sunnyside.shop and use code CHGO25 at checkout for 25% off your total order. One use per customer, not stackable with other promotions. That's not only for new customers. Anyone can use our code. Pick up everything you need to elevate your summer. Must be 21 or older or an Illinois Med card holder. Best part of that Sunnyside experience, you place your order online, it's ready within seconds. You walk in, you pick it up. It's such an easy experience with their wonderful staff. And for we're doing this live on Thursday, but if you're listening on your podcast feed or later, it is, of course, Sunnyside Summer Fridays. And, Cody, I got to ask you, who made you feel good this week in Chicago sports? It's summer. It's Friday. Tomorrow, the weekend, the vibes are good. Sunnyside's going to help you with those vibes. Who's got good vibes from you? I think from all of us at CHGO, it's Connor Bedard. But
yeah, well, I'm just going to say that future Chicago Cubs Shohei Ohtani won me a bet today, and he's making me feel real great.
There you go.
Manifesting it.
Yeah,
okay?
He was playing a Chicago team.
He was playing the White Sox.
I think that
I had him
counts.
4 total bases and to get an RBI, and Lance Lynn to give up 5 hits today in a parlay plus 500, $10 won me $50. So Shohei Ohtani is my. He's the Chicago athlete making me feel good right now.
That's your Sunnyside Summer Fridays good vibes of the week.
Future Chicago Cubs.
And again, that code CHGO25 for 25% off at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensaries.
Well, guys, did you know that students are just like you?
I hope not, or else they're screwed.
They're like you in that they have full-time jobs.
Okay.
Families.
Okay.
And, if nothing else, full-time sports fandoms.
Okay.
With that in mind, maybe it's time to go back to school to earn a respected degree at Lewis University. Lewis University is just 35 miles southwest of Chicago in Romeoville, and they are ranked as one of the U.S. News & World Report's top-tier colleges. Lewis partners with numerous employers for tuition discounts and offers evening, online, and blended formats to help you balance work, family, education, maybe even watching some Cubs games. Their faculty bring real-world experience and instruction to the classroom, which is immediately relevant to your career. They offer career support and academic resources for adult students. So if you're looking to complete your bachelor's or master's degree, maybe it's time to enroll in a professional certificate program. Lewis has the right program for you. They offer several career-focused programs that will set you up for success. They have programs like data science. Maybe you want to work your way into a front office of a baseball team.
You could be like Dr. Brendan Miller.
Dr. Brendan Miller, and convince them that they should not bunt when... No, we won't do that. But if this sounds like something that appeals to you, it is time to discover how a degree from Lewis can help you build a better world. Learn more at lewisu.edu/you can do this.
Before we continue talking about this game and everything, and I have to give Luke Stuckmeyer a lot of credit for this. He's always really good about saying all the things we need to promote and all this. And I don't think this week, at least since Tuesday, we haven't promoted the takeovers that we're doing.
You're wearing the shirt.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it, and I looked down at my shirt, or actually I was looking at the screen, and I realized I was wearing the shirt. What is it? July 26th, CHGO will be at what I call the Cell.
The Rate.
The Rate, the Cell, Comiskey, whatever.
It's like the Sears Tower.
We'll be there July 26th. We're going to be at, what is the bar called? I brought it up, and then we're going to be the pregame at the Carrig Pub, which is in Oak Forest. We'll be there at 5:30, and then we're going to head over to the game. So basically, if you buy the ticket, you get into the game, and then you get the free shirt. So if you're a Cubs fan, if you're watching the show right now, you can get this shirt for free. Or if you're weird and you're a Sox fan and you're just here to laugh at us because we lost, you can get the Sox shirt too. But hey, thanks for the views. July 26th, and then also August 16th back at beautiful historic Wrigley Field. If you can't come to the one at the Cell, or if you don't want to because Wrigley is so much better, again, August 16th. We haven't decided what bar we're going to do the pregame meetup at, but we'll be sitting in the 425 section at the game. And again, if your ticket basically buys you your ticket to the game, and then you get the shirt. So more information at allchgo.com, and I have it pinned as our pinned tweet on Twitter too for more information. So, yeah. Anyway,
will the Cubs be in the race when we
do that
takeover?
Hope so.
I don't know.
Sure as hell hope so, man. James Alexander says mentally weak ball club. Becky says bring on the Bears. You ready to be hurt by the Bears yet? I'm not ready to be hurt by the Bears yet.
I feel like, I mean, obviously the vibes are bad, but
should we talk about some of the good things?
I was going to say we should give props to Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, we can talk about the
really
professor.
Good start from Kyle Hendricks.
Because I mean, you want to think about something that is, if your team is legitimately going to be in contending for the division, how much of a boost is it that Kyle Hendricks is back and really looks like he's back? When's the last time you saw Kyle Hendricks pitching like this? It's truly been years, not just because of the injury, but before he went down with the shoulder injury, in 2021, like he wasn't looking like himself. So to have him not only back on the mound, but pitching like, dare I say, vintage Kyle Hendricks, that is a massive boost for this team, because truly on a normal night, when you have Kyle Hendricks give you 6 innings and only give up 3 runs, you're very much still in that game. You've got a good shot at winning. So you have to feel good about not only what Hendricks did tonight, but how he has looked over this last string of starts.
Well, and just like, it's another one. We've seen starts like this, I think, especially from Marcus Stroman and Justin Steele. But, like, Kyle Hendricks takes a loss tonight. Like, that's a bummer, right? Like, it looked like it might be a tough night for him. Kyle Schwarber jumped on him right away and took him deep right away. That kind of feels like they know each other well, right? He was ready for what was coming. And then Kyle really settled in. He gave up that, kind of seeing eye single to Bryce. It was obviously a really good piece of hitting, but not like a crazily struck ball and just out of reach.
His
I think
worst
of
pitch of the
Dansby there
game was the very first pitch of the game.
Right. He really settled down. 7 innings, only gave up those 3 runs, no walks, 4 strikeouts. He's got an ERA that's at 2.81 on the season now. He keeps delivering quality starts. He looks great. This is the type of thing. He gave you the start, especially with the starts you got from Tyone and Smiley in this series. Kyle Hendricks gave you the start you needed to be the stopper tonight. The offense just couldn't make it work.
Look at what he did after that Bryce Harper single. It was a long stretch of just sitting down those Phillies batters. So he was keeping the Cubs in that game, even while they were, fumbling some of these opportunities at the plate. He shut that offense down after Bryce Harper, and even in the first inning. I mean, that was the first 2 batters. This was setting up for like, we might be in for a long night, because you get the Schwarber home run in the first pitch, and then Trey Turner turns around and hits a double. But then from there, Hendricks shut the door. He gives up a couple of runs 2 innings later, but then shuts the door again. I mean, that's massive.
Anytime you can get 3 earned or less and go 7 innings, like, it's hard to complain about your starting pitcher.
You can't.
This is a night that it's definitely on the offense. It's absolutely on the offense. You give up 3 runs or less, there should be no complaining about the starter.
Bullpen came in and did well too. They were talking about it on the broadcast. I know JD was talking about it. Like, and we've given Ross credit for this. Like, he had to figure this bullpen out, right? And it started with certain guys in the higher leverage spots that weren't getting it done. Certain guys that you thought were going to be key contributors to this bullpen, Brandon Hughes, Keegan Thompson, not a part of it at the moment for different reasons, right? And he had to figure this stuff out. And you look at the pitching performance tonight, Hendricks was followed by Julian Merriweather, an inning of clean work with a strikeout, sub-3 ERA. Mark Leiter Jr., chat favorite, CHGO Cubs own, Mark Leiter Jr.,
We
clean
never gave
inning,
up on him.
2 ERA under 2.5. Like, that's a really solid pitching performance. And this bullpen has really kind of come into shape here. I know they put a graphic up that Fulmer's been really good in the month of June, having, kind of moved out of that role, given some time to work on some stuff. So it wasn't all bad, but, the problem this series, I think, really highlighted one of the kind of lower potential outcomes for this team all in one series, which is you're not a perfect team and something fails on a given night. Yeah. Right? You got bad starting pitching the first couple nights. The offense was bad on 2 of the nights. The runs they scored in the second game of this series probably, with a good pitching performance should have been enough, right?
Yeah.
But one of the risks when you build a team the way that they did, right, is that everything has to work perfectly almost every night for you to win games and win close games especially. And in this series, we saw it. Like, starting pitching isn't good the first 2 nights. Pitching in general, just not good the first 2 nights. Solid pitching, good enough pitching tonight, and you can't score any runs. So
yeah, I don't want to do this, but the chat is like, should they trade Hendricks at the deadline? Just okay. Say they're out of it, right? Say they're out of it. Do you trade Hendricks?
I think Hendricks makes more sense than Stroman.
So
if you force me to choose which one to move, it would be Hendricks over Stroman. But I also feel like Hendricks is just. I've always felt like he was the lifer. And the way that he pitches, it's not like velocity plays. Like, it's not like velocity matters for him. But again, I mean, you trade Anthony Rizzo. I mean, anyone's on the table. So this is just a scenario. If they are at that point where they are selling, which most of me still feels like they won't be. I would rather trade Hendricks than I would Stroman. And I think keeping Stroman shows that they're going to try to extend him, and then your rotation is still looking pretty solid going into 2024, and with an offseason of nice starting pitchers on the market that you can help bolster that rotation back up.
When I think selling can look different ways.
Yeah.
Because there's what you see some people suggesting would be almost like a 2021 style. Just trade everybody. That's not what's going to happen, because where they are in this rebuild process, that's just not going to happen. Not only because it doesn't fit in with where you are, it's also just not smart. So they're not going to do that. I think there are, if you're talking about big name players who could be traded, there's probably 3 legitimate possibilities. You mentioned 2 of them, Hendricks and Stroman. The third we've already talked about is Cody Bellinger. Outside of that, then you get into their bullpen, where maybe it's the guys like Julian Merriweather, even Mark Leiter Jr. Some of those guys.
Trade our guy.
But my belief is, if they do get to the trade deadline and they do plan to sell, their selling is going to be, here's Julian Merriweather, here's Mark Leiter Jr. Maybe Cody Bellinger too. But I don't think you're going to see all right, Hendricks is gone and Stroman is gone. Yeah. I don't see that happening, even if things are
trying to sort of repeat a little of what they did with Scott Efros last year. Turning those pieces into more longer term. They're just
because you've done the work now of this past offseason. You got your Dansby Swanson and you signed him to a long-year deal, or a multi-year deal. You've extended some of your key players. You're not in the position where now you're going to just start dumping everybody.
You can't
that just doesn't make
backwards.
sense.
Yeah.
You're taking a bunch of steps backwards at that point. So
if you do that, you're basically going into 2024 with the same thinking as you were coming into this season. And that is why anyone who thinks that they should be moving
or worse.
or worse.
And
anyone who thinks that they should actually really sell like they have the last 2 trade deadlines, I don't know what you're smoking or thinking, man. I
also think, that all makes sense from
Maybe
a
it's
baseball
sunny
perspective, everything, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen people talk too. It seems like a decent enough point. Like, if they're really planning to launch that, direct to consumer streaming option from Marquee, at some point you need to give people something to watch.
Give them a reason to want to pay for it.
You can't keep doing, to your point, even from a baseball perspective, it doesn't make sense to continually just keep going backwards, right? You're like, what is it, Sisyphus that's pushing the rock, right?
Pushing the rock up the
hill.
You're
throwing the rock down on your own, right? If you keep doing that.
You're dropping it on your own face at that point.
But even from a business perspective, if you're planning to ask people to pay you money for Marquee directly, you can't keep doing that. At some point, you have to be legitimately building for a future that is closer to the present than just this mythical sort of future thing. Hendricks would be a bummer. Because at some point, you're correct. If they traded Anthony Rizzo, they can do anything, right? Yeah. And I remember thinking that at the deadline, even leading up to that deadline, I was like, yeah, they'll trade everybody, but they would never trade Rizzo. I probably would have said that to you 5 minutes before they did it, right? But at some point, it would just be nice for one of them to stick around, right? And there's only one left, so like,
we have to mention too that he does have a club option, so it's not like they could. It's not that he would just be out of here for nothing. If he sticks around, I would assume the Cubs plan to pick that option up. You know what I mean? Especially if he pitches well the rest of the season, or just as good as he has. As we keep talking about, he's been better than anyone expected. 7 innings tonight, 3 earned. Like, again, he's pitched as well as you could have asked for a guy who's coming off an injury and hasn't pitched well for the last year and a half. Like, so maybe having that club option increases his value a little bit more, but I still don't think you're going to get a ton of value for a guy of his type. You know, someone mentioned Luis Castillo. Oh, the Reds got 2 top 30 prospects for him. Yeah, because he's a bona fide ace, right? Like, he's the ace for the Mariners, and he throws gas, and he's the exact type of guy that you want to have as your ace. Kyle Hendricks is, even in maybe his best year or years were like 2019, 2020. Those were probably some of his best seasons, I think. 2018 as well, but
2016 he almost won Cy Young.
20, fine, thank you. 2016, he won the ERA title, but I whatever. Anyway, all I'm saying is that his best years are behind him, and that's why to me at this point he what we're seeing is wild, but also like you said, it would be nice to always have to have the one guy, but I just don't think you're going to get the value that maybe some fans are thinking. Like, maybe you could for Stroman, but I just don't think you're going to get any kind of value like that for Hendricks, considering the small sample size of the success that he's had since coming back.
I doubt that trading him would be worth it, whatever that means. I could see potentially if he keeps pitching like this, like he does have he's one of those guys that has a postseason pedigree, right? Yeah. And I could see if you already have a good staff, he would be a really good guy to have as a maybe number 4 option in a really good playoff rotation. Like, this guy can handle those big moments. He can step up, and he can study an offense and go into a playoff game and deliver for you. The moment is obviously not too big for him. Game 6, wins the pennant in 2016, starts Game 7 of the World Series. I could see that, but what that's going to get you from another team, I don't know. And it's obviously a nostalgic, narrative-driven thing.
And the Cubs aren't going to look at it that way.
Kerry Wood played for other teams in between, but I don't know, one of these guys having a kind of final send-off like Kerry Wood did at Wrigley Field would be nice, instead of them all just, half of them when they got traded, they didn't even get an ovation. Remember Rizzo and Bryant didn't play. We didn't even get to say goodbye to them in a proper way in a Cubs uniform. So they can't run the team that way, and I'm fine if Jed doesn't, but it is depressing to kind of talk about how they're getting rid of every single one of these guys.
I'm sorry to bring up the topic. The chat kept asking, and as a man of integrity, I had to do what I had to do.
And I mean, if you listen, I know you guys talked about this yesterday, but you listen to Carter Hawkins kind of talking about the situation, these are realistic conversations that we need to have. That's just the reality of it. They're in a spot where everybody kind of knows what's going on, and unless they're really on a run here and truthfully competitive, that's how the front office is going to approach things, whether we like it or not. We kind of have to acknowledge that. Should we?
I was gonna say, at least the lights are bright at Wrigley Field.
Yes.
At least we have that. We have the sky and we have the bright lights.
Yeah.
And
the smoke is cleared.
Cody, let me tell you about those lights. That is from our good friends at the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, which is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, helping manage energy usage and lower energy bills now and into the future.
Yeah, ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across the territory. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities, like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
How does it work, Cody?
Well, let me tell you how it works. Corey, an authorized engineer, will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific for your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually and last approximately 2 hours. Within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. If you own a business, don't wait, Jared. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule a free facility assessment, go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz.
Did you say ComEd.com/poweringbiz, Cody?
Yeah, schedule it today. That was for Luke
Today.
Stuckmeyer. Yeah. So you got bright lights. Sometimes you need your sunglasses.
Sometimes you do need your sunglasses. And when the smoke and the clouds clear, the sun comes out, and you should take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered for the warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. Together with their customers, Shady Rays is providing much needed support to nonprofit partners across the U.S. through Shady Rays Impact. With that program, they're building play sets for pediatric cancer patients and providing young adults with MS the outdoor adventure of a lifetime. Shady Rays is making an impact in your community and others like it now and for years to come. If you don't love your Shady Rays, somehow, exchange for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2 pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. And
That's a lot of people, Jared.
That is a lot of people. Our friend Ryan Herrera is here. And before we ask any questions, I just want to let him know that Carlos in the chat says that my new beard is on point.
Do you have a new beard?
It's not new, but, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
it's coming in, and he's noticing it. Yeah.
Welcome in. Is now a good time for me to bunt, or should I wait till later?
You can bunt whenever you want, man. It's a bunt fest today.
Tough. It's tough.
Tough scene.
Yeah, we talked about in the first segment. I guess it's explained now that it didn't come from David Ross. So we've been discussing, where is this still on David Ross in some sort of way because he is the manager, it is his team, he has to make sure the players know the certain, they have to know what's going on. What is your take on that? Because we've just been debating that, I guess.
The magical one is he forgot the outs, right? I don't know how you can blame that on David Ross. Your guy forgot the outs and tried to bunt. Honestly, in both those, I can't really blame David Ross because these guys are professionals. They've played baseball their entire lives. These are situations that people watching the game looked at and said, why are they bunting in that situation, right? It shouldn't. If you want to blame David Ross for not going through every single situation, whether or not a bunt is the right move in that situation, during spring training, I guess you could criticize him that way. I guess I wouldn't, because it's the situations should. If you're Christopher Morel, and Corey mentioned this in the Slack earlier, you're the 3-hole hitter. You swing the bat when this guy's on first and third, nobody out. You're not the number 9 hitter in the lineup. You are the 3-hole hitter. You should swing the bat. And Yeah, I don't know, and people, like David Ross said, like now, now Morel knows what's expected of him, right? And I've seen already the discourse on Twitter that like that's a criticism that David Ross, but it's like he should not have had to explain that idea to Christopher Morel. Like if Christopher Morel's in the 3-hole, he should know that they want him swinging the bat, especially considering how hot he's really been the last few weeks. I mean, I know maybe the last couple games haven't been as good for him, but just like how well he swung the bat the last few weeks since kind of getting sat down in that series in Anaheim. Like he should know he's a number 3 hitter. You're not bunting the 3-hole. And if you want to blame David Ross for not making that crystal clear to him, that's your prerogative. You go ahead and do that. I can't sit here and say that I would criticize David Ross for that.
Well, that's fair. We're just sitting here yelling about stuff, so whatever. It's irrational, obviously.
I'm curious, Ryan, like obviously, I mean, I know we saw your video where Ross was talking about that. I know that's obviously part of the discussion tonight. But in general, like obviously back at home, this is not how they wanted to start this kind of critical 13-game stretch. What was the discussion outside of those two individual moments just about their performance in this series, the lack of offense in a couple of the games, and obviously having to turn the page really quickly with Cleveland coming to town tomorrow afternoon?
Yeah, and I think that's, we talked to Morel afterwards about that bunt for sure, but just kind of the series and just what's kind of happened. And you can say the whole trip in London, right? Though you say the whole London thing. Maybe it affected them, the traveling, the time changes, all that stuff. You could say that the smoke that still is just sitting in Chicago, maybe that affected them too, right? And you can make some kind of excuse for them, like, but talking to Morel, talking to all these guys, like no one's making excuses or using any of that as excuses. Like they all know that they have to play better, and it's been made really clear by like David Ross before the series started, saying like admitting that he understood how important this stretch going into the All-Star break would be for this team. Carter Hawkins talking yesterday about trade deadline and not saying that they would sell if they're under 500, but saying that the organization can't go out and say that being under 500 is a comfortable position or a competitive position, regardless of how close they are to first place in the division, right? Like the coaching staff, the front office, like everyone, the players even have expressed like they understand how important this stretch is as far as what this team does, a month from now. And yeah, it's a very disappointing way to start this homestand. I think, the Phillies are, as we discussed yesterday, like regardless of how inconsistent their season kind of been, like they have a good team. Like they have good pitchers, they have a good lineup. Like they have a team that could come in and sweep even the hottest teams, right? Like the Cubs were pretty hot coming into this series and got swept by the Phillies. So we saw that. They have the Guardians coming in. They got the Brewers at 4 in Milwaukee next week, and then they got 3 in New York to end the first half, so to speak. So they all know how important it is. Like I don't think anyone has understated the importance of this stretch as far as what it means for the rest of the season, and especially what it means for them going to the trade deadline. And they know that, and they have expressed that they know they have to play better. It's just about going out and doing it because the series was bad. Like the first 2 games, the starting pitching dug them in a hole that the rest of the team couldn't get it out of. Today, Kyle Hendricks picked it up after giving up 3 runs in the first 3 innings, and the offense just wasted multiple opportunities, the bunts, the errors in the outfield they couldn't take advantage of. Like so, it's this overall series was another one of those examples of what was going wrong in May when the whole team wasn't clicking at the right time. The last few weeks they had been, and they need to get back to that. Like we're not at the point where it's early anymore, right? Like they have to get back to that and get back to that quickly.
Michael Collada in the chat says, I need a drink, and I agree. Get yourself a 312, my friend.
This one's for you, Michael.
Or the beer hug. Yeah, it's a good one, 9.9%.
I like the comment. I'm not sure how to pronounce it in the chat. VTURLA. He says, or excuse me, they were at the game. and we're several beers deep, and they knew how many outs there were. So just an interesting.
Wild. Interesting how that happened.
That's a tough scene for you in particular, Ryan. Madrigal's been on this hot stretch.
Yeah, I know.
You must have been you're not allowed to yell in the press box, but you must have been up there going, Nicky, you barreled the ball finally. Swing the bat, brother.
I mean, and Jared was up here for a little bit too. And that we talking about just how that was it was kind of inexcusable. Like you have to know how many outs there are. It says it on the board, right?
Literally right in front of you.
Yeah.
From the plate. Like,
just look up. It's right there.
You can't make an excuse for forgetting how many outs there are. And as you said, like he'd actually been hitting the ball pretty well since he got recalled. And talking to David Ross before the game.
Credit to you.
Talking to David Ross before the game, like he kind of talked about how Nick. The circumstances have made it that Nick is getting a lot of run at third base, and that has probably helped him, find that rhythm, just like it would help any hitter find the rhythm to get everyday playing time. So yeah, he had been hitting the ball well. There's 2 outs and first and third, I want to say. Like you got to know how many outs there are, and if you get a ball, drop it over the shortstop head. It doesn't even matter if you get your second barrel in a Cubs uniform. You drop it in the outfield, that's scoring a run, right? So yeah, you can't. That's inexcusable. You cannot make an excuse for not knowing how many outs there are in that situation.
I will say, because I spent the first 6 innings of tonight's game sitting next to Ryan in the press box, and even though, yes, there's no shouting or cheering in the press box, there was a lot of looking around, what in the world was that? A few of us trying to make sense of what we had just seen.
Which was the press box most confused about, Madrigal or Morel?
That's a good question.
I would say Madrigal.
Sure. It was the Madrigal one, but because then the Morel one happened, and we're all kind of like, okay, is this a bit? Are they just sort of messing with us at this point? What's going on?
I did say to Cody, I think it was Dansby was up later in the game. I was like, he should bunt just because it would be funny. At that point, screw it, right? Just commit to the bit completely.
There was a spot that I turned, a similar situation. I turned to Ryan and said, okay, if this guy bunts here, I'm just leaving right now. So, it did feel a little bit like we were in the middle of a sketch and just didn't know it. Yeah.
Before we get to who you got, I guess I had one more other question. And it's basically related to Kyle Hendricks. The guy continues to be unreal in terms of our season expectations for him. And I'm just curious if you're able to talk to him or if David Ross said anything about him, because we're going to end this podcast with some sort of positive thing, and he is the only positive thing tonight outside of Jared Young.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked to both of them. Kyle, he's feeling good. He said that was the first thing he says. I felt really good again. He's consistently gone out and since that first outing, which wasn't even a terrible outing, just so maybe a little more on the bad side. He's been really good, and we talked about it back in spring training. Cody, you were someone that very skeptical about if Kyle Hendricks was going to come in and produce the way that they want him to, not as an ace or even a top line starter, but someone they can trust in that rotation. And David Ross, very complimentary tonight about Kyle. Again, settling down, being efficient. He gave up 3 earned runs, but those were the first 3 innings, and then he sent down 10 straight to get through the 6th, and then I think he might have given up 1 more hit in the 7th. So that was after those first 3 innings, very efficient pitching from Kyle Hendricks. Kyle just he's feeling good, right? He mentioned the Schwarber home run on the first pitch of the game, and just said yeah, Kyle got me. Had a little fun with that one, but I think you're seeing it, and Kyle and David Ross are talking about it. He's making the good pitches. You're seeing the command of what he needs to command. You see it a lot. You see it a lot more than you were seeing it the last year and a half, 2 years, or the last year and a half prior to the injury. Kyle Hendricks has been everything the Cubs could have asked him to be coming into the season, coming off a long layoff, coming off this whole program to try to increase his velocity and change up his delivery and all that stuff. Kyle Hendricks has been everything the Cubs could have asked for. It's a shame that he had another good outing, wasted in an effort like this that again, like you can point to multiple spots in the game where it's like this could have changed the game, and it didn't because of mistakes on the Cubs side. But it's to the point now where like you're starting to feel comfortable with Kyle. It's kind of like with Drew Smyly, right? Like he might not give you gems every single time out, like Marcus Stroman or even Justin Steele, but you're starting to feel like when you throw this guy out on the mound, like you feel like the Cubs have a good chance to win that night or that day. And as far as what they're asking Kyle Hendricks to do right now, like that's all they can ask for.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, as long as he keeps doing this, I do think the Cubs can, turn it around. They've lost 4 straight, and obviously that means they got to win a game to end this streak, right? So hopefully that starts tomorrow. And a big part of their success that they've had over the last handful of weeks before this week was starting pitching. And that's been the consistent thing all season. So it's good to, again, I think that's probably the biggest positive tonight as far as just how you feel about the team going forward is Kyle Hendricks. It's starting to grow on me a little bit that I can start to perhaps maybe expect a little bit more. So, and that where I was sitting 5 months ago, that's more than anything I would have ever expected. So, all right, who you got? Ryan had Bellinger. Corey had Amaya. I took Madrigal because of the bit. Brendan took
Jared, isn't it? Right?
Brendan took Swanson, and then Jared took Young, who had the triple.
Went with my guy, my fellow Jared Young. 2 nights in a row.
Yeah. So 2 nights in a row, Jared. Any complaints? I mean, Stucky's probably at home saying that he probably took someone, but he forgot to send it because he's
he's busy.
On vacation. Yeah, he's busy. All right. So Jared's 2-0. What was your favorite part of starting undefeated, Jared?
Hopefully continuing to be undefeated tomorrow.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you'll be here with me tomorrow.
That's right.
And my good friend Danny Rocket, who's coming in to – Danny Rocket's coming in tomorrow. He just dropped his new album with the Bleacher Bum Band. So I'm going to let him come in here and promote it a little bit, but also he's going to do pre and post with us. So that'll be fun. Ryan will be at the ballpark again. Someone asked in the chat earlier where is Stuckmeyer? He is on vacation, and the Cubs are 0-3 since he's been on vacation. All I'm saying is if I have to drag his ass back in here on Monday, I will.
Time to change your plans, Luke.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give him tomorrow, but if they lose tomorrow and then lose in the next 2, Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to go out to Arlington Heights and drag his ass
and
here.
Just bring him here. And he's camping out in studio. He's just setting
I ain't
up
going to let him
cot.
leave. I ain't going to let him leave. All right.
Sure.
Thanks for everyone for tuning in. We got 56 likes. We had over 100 people watching live. So hit the like button on your way out. Cubs again lose 3-1. We were hurt again. It is what it is. Get back at it tomorrow. Friday, 1:20 vibes. You know how it is. So we'll see you then, and we'll fly the W tomorrow.
Ryan was late on his